Just need the city manager. All right, it is, I have 5:30. Call to order the study session for the City of Cherry Hills Village. It's October 5th, 2021. On for the study session tonight is a discussion of the proposed budget, and this is the first discussion of this. Then there'll be, as I understand it, introduced again twice to be voted on by council before enactment. So unless city manager has anything, Director Sager, would you like to take it away?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Stewart, members of City Council. Before we begin with the budget presentation, I would like to advise council there's a note next to the sales tax revenue line from a previous budget version that should not be there and has since been removed. So I just wanted to point that out before we start. The 2022, oh, so sorry. You want me to take it off? How about that? Okay. Can you hear? The budget that's in front of you tonight has a note next to the sales tax revenue line from a previous budget version that should not be included. So that has since been removed. So just to point that out for you tonight. The 2022 proposed budget process presented a few unique challenges this year. Included in the proposed budget are increased medical and dental premiums, as well as atypical expenses, such as the public affairs consultant and costs for the master plan update. In an effort to present a balanced budget tonight, several other expenditures were either reduced or removed to offset these necessary expenditures. The reduced or removed expenditures include staff increases, employee tuition, conference fees, national night out, equipment requests, annual shred day, an overlap in salary, snow and ice materials, and vehicle maintenance. The proposed budget is a balanced budget with revenues and expenditures equaling $7,618,877. The 2022 projected ending fund balance for the general fund is $13,146,666. Overall, the revenues and expenditures included in the proposed budget are 3% higher than the 2021 approved budget. Included in the proposed budget are two assumptions that will be adjusted prior to second and final reading. The assumptions are the assessed property values for property tax revenue and the city's medical and dental insurance premium increases. Arapahoe County will provide final assessed property values in time for second and final reading in December. The city's health insurance line item increased 29% from the 2021 adopted budget. This increase is due to a combination of personnel changes, such as replacing an employee that had waived city coverage with an employee that has selected the top tier family plan, as well as employees that were on a lower tier plan changing to the top tier plan during open enrollment. Staff has not received final health and dental insurance increases yet. Therefore, an additional 7.5% increase for health and a 5% increase for dental has been included in the proposed budget. The city's broker will provide final increases in time for first reading in November. 75% of the proposed revenue will come from taxes and fees, such as property, motor vehicle use taxes. 14% will come from licenses and permits, such as building and right-of-way permit fees. 5% will come from intergovernmental sources, such as highway user taxes, road and bridge levies, and cigarette taxes. Another 5% will come from charges for services, such as municipal court fines, alarm fees, and DUI fines. Finally, 1% will come from miscellaneous sources, such as earned interest, crier contributions, and advertisements. This slide reflects the history of property tax revenue collection along with the assessed property values for houses in the city from 2008 to 2022. While preliminary assessments provided by Arapahoe County indicate a 6% increase in property tax revenue, Senate Bill 21-293 reduced the residential assessment ratio from 7.15% to 6.95%. This reduction equated to approximately $82,000 less in property tax revenue than was originally anticipated for 2022. The reduced RAR will be in place for a 2-year period and should go back up to 7.15% after the 2 years. This is another example of one of the unique challenges that I mentioned earlier at the beginning. The expenditure breakdown by department is 48% for the police department, 27% for administration, 14% for public works, 7% for community development, 3% for non-departmental such as information technology and the village crier, and 1% for the judicial department. Included in all applicable departmental budgets is a 2% increase for staff. This will be a 0.5% increase for merit and a 1.5% increase for cost of living. The administration departmental budget also includes the remaining amount for the public affairs consultant contract. Employee tuition reimbursement requests were reduced from a maximum of $10,000 per request to a maximum of $5,000 per request. Staff also removed a line item for miscellaneous conference fees. Included in the community development departmental budget is the remaining amount for the master plan update, as well as the salary adjustment for the promotion of the current senior planner to a planning manager in 2022. The public safety departmental budget includes a 5% increase for other contractual services such as range fees and Arapahoe County dispatch fees. It also includes reduced expenses for National Night Out and several removed equipment requests. The equipment requests included 2 replacement AR-15 rifles, ballistic helmets and vests, a replacement laser, and another electric bicycle. The Public Works departmental budget includes fees for the APWA reaccreditation. The expense for the annual shred day was removed, along with the removal of the overlap salary for the project right-of-way manager's retirement next year. Snow and ice materials and vehicle maintenance expenditures were also reduced. The proposed capital fund expenditures for the administration department include Civic HR software that would integrate with the city's current website. Incidentally, we received notice today that Civic Plus has reduced the first-year investment cost for this software by $1,500. So if approved, we'll adjust that line item for first reading in November. The capital fund also includes a new F-150 pickup truck for the police department, as well as the 2022 annual lease amount for the Axon body camera system. The body camera system expense will be offset by the $15,000 anonymous donation that was received earlier this year and placed into an escrow account to be applied towards this project. Proposed capital fund expenditures for the Public Works Department include the 2022 chip seal replacement project, as well as a concrete replacement project. Proposed capital fund expenditures for the Parks Division include bridge maintenance, a new utility vehicle, pond aeration, the second phase of a bike trail chip seal project, a replacement mower, and new parks maintenance software and hardware. The capital fund also includes a Highline Canal stormwater study and the US 285 congestion mitigation study. Finally, 2 City Council requested projects are included in the 2022 proposed capital fund budget. The first is the Bellevue Island at Cherry Hills Farm project. This project was included in the 2021 approved budget, but hasn't been started, so it's been carried over into the 2022 proposed capital fund budget. The other City Council requested project are 2 speed tables, one at Quincy Avenue and the other at Colorado Boulevard at the Highline Canal crossings. The Conservation Trust Fund proposed budget for 2022 includes $64,500 for trail improvements. The projected balance in reserves at the end of 2022 will be $444,514. The Catherine Anderson Land Donation Fund proposed budget includes $55,000 for increased Quincy Farm general maintenance, along with $10,000 for support for the Highline Conservancy. The projected balance in reserves at the end of 2022 will be $272,052. The Arapahoe County Open Space Fund proposed budget includes $90,000 for trail improvements and $10,000 for park improvements. The projected balance in reserves at the end of 2022 will be $754,444. And the Water and Sewer Fund proposed budget includes sewer line repairs for Martin Lane in the amount of $400,000, along with engineering fees for this same project in the amount of $85,000. The projected balance in reserves at the end of 2022 will be $372,631. Due to the increased maintenance demands for the new park, as well as existing parks, the Parks Division is requesting another full-time employee that will be deployed in the field. The proposed budget also includes a 2% increase for staff, projected health and dental premium increases, John Mead Park goose control and pond management, and capital fund expenditures. The proposed budget also includes weed mitigation for Quincy Farm and a $10,000 carryover from 2021 for the Cherry Hills Village Art Commission. In 2020, the commission received permission from City Council to spend an additional $10,000 for a permanent piece in John Mead Park. The funds were not spent in 2020, so they were carried over into 2021. However, the commission has focused on acquiring a new sculpture on Lone Piece along Quincy Avenue. So they're requesting these funds be carried over into 2022 so they can purchase the new piece in John Mead Park since they will not be spent in 2021. The projected fund balance at the end of 2022 will be $1,835,693. Earlier this year, City Council amended the budget to create the American Rescue Plan Act Fund that will be used to account for revenue Cherry Hills Village will receive from the Corona State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, as well as any expenditures. Cherry Hills Village received the first payment earlier this year and will receive the final payment in 2022. Because the final guidance from Treasury has not been released and the program allowances continue to evolve, staff would recommend waiting to expend any of the funds until the final guidance is released. The city has until December 31st, 2024 to obligate the funds and until December 31st, 2026 to expend the funds. The projected fund balance at the end of 2022 will be $1,670,722. That is my presentation. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Certainly, Councilor Blum.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 or 4 questions here. And I did spend a lot of time with Jessica, and as always, I think Jessica did an outstanding job putting this budget together for all of us. Jessica, that Prop 120, I think it's in the November ballot. Does that affect us at all? Because that's reducing, is it multifamily or is it hotel? Does it affect with the, maybe you know, Mayor?
Or maybe Kathy knows. I don't.
Yeah, it doesn't affect us, and it's a complicated. What happened was the proposition went on the ballot that was initiated by voters would have reduced our taxes. The General Assembly did a fast one, or kind of acted quickly to reduce the residential rate for 2 years, and then by redefining the categories of which it applied. So in November, we'll be voting on something that won't affect our tax rate. But I will say that I'm also aware that next year there will be additional ballot initiatives coming. So this isn't, it's starting to work out. So there's the conservatives are using the ballot initiatives, and the General Assembly is using their authority. So it's.
So bottom line does not affect us, our numbers. Jessica, we have a police fund, is that right, option? Right. Has anybody discussed with them these body cameras to see if we can get the balance of that donated as part of their obligation or what their commitment is?
I have not, but I believe Chief Tovray has spoken with the foundation, and maybe she can answer that.
So I haven't spoken to Mark Griffin lately. I have no idea what that fund balance might be in there, and that would be something we could certainly look at depending on what goes on. But the idea behind that is that it's just not automatic, that you would go before their board and ask for something. This is a need, this is what we'd like to do, and then they would decide that. So it's not an automatic, and I have no idea what that balance might be there.
So do we approach them and ask them for that we may use it, or how do we handle that?
You do not. That would my understanding is that would come from the police department through the city manager, understanding, and Jessica understanding exactly what the budget is, what the need would be, and then whatever percentage that they would be willing to to assist us with.
Okay. Next question relates to these speed tables at Quincy and Colorado. Is that something that, Mayor, is that something we need to go to our constituents and ask them about? Because, we've had roundabouts and other discussion of speed bumps and stuff. That's something that we got to be very open with.
I just proposed it for the budget for discussion so we could all talk about it. And see, they would match what Greenwood Village does. You've probably seen Greenwood Village's tables that they have at the Highline Canal, so it would be an experience.
That's probably something we need from the fire department to bless also, I would think.
Yeah, I assume that we'd have to go through that as well, but I assume that Greenwood Village has done it and figured out a way to do it, and it does slow down traffic as well, and it's a safety issue, as much as primarily a safety issue.
Right. And then on the question of maintenance for Bellevue medians, is that something now we start splitting with Greenwood Village?
Our portion is included in the Parks and Recreation Fund, so it has been included for 2022.
So we pay 100% of that now?
We do.
They installed it?
our part.
Of the maintenance, correct.
Okay. And then the only final question I got is on the ARPA funds. We haven't seen any direction from Treasury on how they want to, if we can use that for increasing our phone service.
There has definitely been guidance about broadband, but I will tell you from monitoring some of the traffic and the chatter from CCUA and others, it sounds like that the guidance from Treasury just continues to fluctuate. And you'll get an email update. It sounds like that you'll be able to do the middle mile, and then you get the next one. And yeah, you can do the middle mile if you then have to prove that every end user is going to see an increase in service, which, oh my gosh, we wouldn't be able to prove that. So it continues to evolve. And so I don't think, while broadband itself is certainly a categorical method to use those dollars, the way we want to use it, I'm not sure if it's going to end up being applicable or not.
The final rule hasn't issued yet.
Correct.
It's kind of useless, pointless to talk about it until the final rule comes down and we can take a shot at it.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Counselor?
Just a couple things. We have 19% that we're charging off to Parks and Rec.
Correct.
I feel like we have this conversation every couple of years. Does it make any sense to audit that and see if there's any reason why it should be higher?
We keep an eye on it. It's based off employees and the percentage that employees that aren't specific to the parks division.
It's not the percentage that necessarily maybe goes higher. I'm wondering if there maybe are some items in some of the specific budgets that could possibly be charged off at that rate, whether it's 19 or 20 or 21, whatever it is, that aren't currently getting charged off. I want to make sure that is getting charged its respective share of our expenses. So something to think about. I don't know if it's something we work on between now and approving a budget, but I know I've talked to a few of staff about this topic, and I think it's maybe worthy of looking at. My second and last question is regarding the American Rescue Plan funds, the ARPA funds. I think I read a Frida Micklin article. Hi, Frida. In the Villager a few days ago that talked about how Greenwood Village is planning on spending some of their $3.5 or $4 million, and it talked about how they're looking to move some of it into their general fund and using it for general fund expenditures. I'm not necessarily suggesting we do that, but I guess it brings up a question for me. It seems like we've been very focused on keeping our funds really earmarked towards things that Treasury's been guiding us on, or to some extent lack of guidance from Treasury still. We're still waiting on guidance. I'm wondering how they're going about doing that, if they are doing that, or if that was maybe old news and there's been an update since then. I know you wrote it. If we can, maybe
I think we can answer it. I think, yeah. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, we can answer it. I believe Greenwood Village used a portion of their ARPA funds with the revenue recovery portion of that. If you had lost revenue in 2020, 2021, there was a calculation that you could do in which you could use those funds and apply it to your general fund. We did not have that, so
Okay.
we were not eligible to put it in
Got
the
it.
general
That
fund.
makes sense. Maybe I didn't read the article close enough. Thank you for your great work, Frida. That's all I got. Thank you.
Councilor Gallagher, go ahead.
Question for Chief. In you've asked for equipment, and it has not been put on the list. Is there any compromise in your mission?
Sir, I'm so sorry with the heroes going by. I didn't hear your question.
The equipment that you're not going to receive, is that a compromise in your mission?
No,
Okay.
we'll make it happen.
Okay. Jessica, what's the contribution of the city to the employees' health insurance?
That I don't know off the top of my head, based on the different tiers. I can calculate that for you and send it out by email tomorrow.
But in general,
We cover the majority.
and you cover majority for the employee. How about spouse and dependents?
For family plans and individual plans, yes.
I
The
see.
city does cover the majority of those plans.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Councilor Brown.
So I had similar questions, particularly as it relates to the equipment that was not included for the police department. Do you have an approximate number of what the total amount of those reductions was?
I do. It was $11,450.
Total, okay. And also, I know we've had this conversation in the past with the, reductions in tuition. I always, my ears perk up when we talk about anything that is a cut to what we do for our staff people. But I seem to recall in previous years' discussions, we talked with people who were, it was either that fewer people were planning on requesting tuition reimbursement, or that they didn't expect their expenses to be as high for whatever reason. Are we comfortable that we will still be meeting the needs of our staff even with that reduced tuition reimbursement, or will there be people that will not be receiving something?
All 4 employees that have requested it have been told at this point that it's at $5,000 and hope that they plan for that next year. If the medical and dental insurance increases come back less than anticipated and we can bump that back up, and that's council's desire, we can definitely do that. But it has been communicated to all 4 employees at this point.
Okay. And you said that was reduced from what to what? Again, it was
From $10,000 per request to $5,000 per request. And we have 2 employees that are being paid from the general fund and 2 employees that are being paid from the Parks and Recreation Fund.
Okay.
And even though the Parks and Recreation Fund doesn't have that same balance issue that the general fund did, we thought that it would be fair to limit them
be
both to
consistent.
$5,000.
And do we know in the past whether those reimbursements have been within the $5,000 threshold, or do we expect that they're actually more than that?
There is one employee that's been higher. He has almost elected the full $10,000. Nobody has hit that $10,000 mark at this point yet, but there's one that will be close this year.
Okay. And then I too had a question about the speed tables. When you said city council recommended items, I was like, I don't remember ever talking about that. And I do think that needs to be discussed. I know it's not an enormous amount of money, but I don't think we can. I am very hesitant to make assumptions about what people of Cherry Hills Village want. I would argue that the roundabout was also a safety issue, and clearly that was not the community's first concern. So I don't think it should be included in the budget at this point. I think that there needs to be a great deal of discussion about that before we ever get to that point. And I don't think that adding things into the budget as a way of starting a discussion is really a good plan either. We need to decide whether speed tables are important and a priority for our community, and then, budget for that as a result. And then I know, just because I see Councilor Holen in the audience, I just wanted to say that there have been several ideas talked about, like the 1% transfer, the potential sale of a vacant lot. All of those things are still on the table. And I want anybody watching or listening to know that at least I, and I think several members of council, are very interested in discussing those items. But I do feel pretty strongly that those things, we have a balanced budget. We're able to balance our budget with the funds that we have. So those individual items need to be discussed based on their own merits. We don't have to do those things to balance our budget. I guess that's the point. The situation is not so dire that we have to go sell 90 Mead Lane just to make ends meet. But if we have projects that we would like to approach and that these could be funding sources for those projects, those are conversations that need to be had. And they have been added as a separate discussion item, I believe at the November 16th or 15th, whatever the date, that meeting in November, where we will discuss each of those things on their own merits, because it really doesn't relate to our annual budgeting process at this point. So that's it.
Councilor Wheel.
Thank you. Well, first of all, great job. I mean, it's
Thank you.
always very easy to understand what's going on. The notes are just spectacular, and I can imagine how much effort and iteration and reiteration had to go on behind the scenes to get us to this point. So congratulations.
Thank you.
A clarification on Bellevue. I think the Bellevue, not the median maintenance, but the reconfiguration. I think what we have in the budget is 50K, which is about half of the total. And so it's not completely provided for, just for the benefit of everybody else. I would, kind of echo myself, I guess, from last meeting about electric vehicles. We had one vehicle in the plan here, and I'm hoping that we can explore whether it would be appropriate to go with electric, or maybe the application isn't suited for that. But I'd like us to ask the question. It seems to me that last year we kind of approached the merit question as, well, if we have a great year, then we can do something different. Half a percent for merit seems modest, I guess, would be a good way to put it. And I think we might want to do something similar. Obviously, council's got to agree, but I think we have a terrific staff, and I want to make sure that we compensate competitively, that we're not squeezing ourselves into oblivion.
Councilor Wheel?
Yeah.
Can I just clarify your comment there? Last year, we discussed, the council decided that at mid-year, we would revisit
Exactly.
the situation. Is that what you're recommending here?
That's what I'm talking about. Rather than just say, well, it's a 0.5%, we're locking it in on the budget, that's that. I think it seems to me that we actually made a reduction last year, and then we agreed that we would look at it mid-year and re-implement or something along those lines. But I think we should do that again this year.
I think technically that's certainly very feasible, and at a staff level, I'm certainly concerned about recruitment and retention and what this means for that. So I think that's certainly something we could look at. I guess I would just welcome other council input on that.
And I should add that I think we need to get the analysis that answers the question, how are we doing relative to competitive salaries as well, just so that we're not, shooting in the dark. But yeah, any other comments, I guess? Chris, do you ask for other comments, or? Katie, you're doing better than I am, because, the council at speed table thing, I don't even know what it is, so, I'm sure there will be illumination. But anyway, that's all the questions I have. Again, thank you, great job.
Councilor Safabi.
Just a quick question, Jessica. Can you educate me in terms of how do we go about selecting our health insurance? Do we annually, get 3 quotations? Walk me through the process.
Right now, we have Kaiser Insurance, and so we have the broker who will go out and get the rates from Kaiser, the current rates. He also brings back other providers as well. We've stuck with Kaiser primarily. I think I've been here 17 years. We've had Kaiser the entire time I've been here. But they do bring back other plans for us to look at. And we usually, when I say we, I mean the city manager, Catherine, our HR analyst, and myself, take a look at the different plans just to make sure that they're comparable to each other, and then select the one that we think is most appropriate. So it might be that maybe in the future we look at moving towards a different provider rather than Kaiser because the rates have gone up. It's just not something that we've done yet.
And I would add to that we also offer a variety of Kaiser plans. Mm-hmm. And to date, the city has continually picked up the incremental increases every year as the employees have not made any contributions to those. That goes into the retention and recruitment aspect of it. But given the rate that increases are happening in the insurance world, there's probably a limit to that at some point. It's just not sustainable. When that is off on the horizon, I'm not sure. The other thing that we might also look at some point, if the rates just continue to go up and up and up, is maybe we evaluate the plans that were offered within Kaiser. Maybe there's opportunities there where we can still provide excellent health insurance to our employees, while, as you saw, some simple election choices made huge differences for our overall health insurance. And so there might be an opportunity to do some analysis there too. This is off the cuff thinking. This isn't necessarily something that we're recommending to you today. Just things that we're trying to think about down the road.
Good. And so let me ask you, and that might be a question for Chris as well. If you go to some of our employees, do they know not just about their salary, do they know what is their total compensation in terms of when we talk to them? Do they have a piece of paper that says this much for retirement and all that? So they
do.
See that,
we do
right?
a compensation analysis at the end of every year. They get one that shows this is your actual total salary, including benefits, retirement, and all of that. So they are aware of that. We actually did a benefits survey earlier this year because we were anticipating an increase from Kaiser. We wanted to see where the employees, how they felt about possibly changing insurance companies, how important that was to them. Would they rather stick with the insurance company and maybe absorb that cost, or would they rather go to a different insurance company because they don't want to absorb that cost? And overwhelmingly, everybody wanted to stay with Kaiser. So we're trying to make that happen, like City Manager Kramer said, and thanks to a suggestion by Councilor Gallagher as well, taking a look at the plans that we have, because we do offer a premium plan. Perhaps that's not something that we do moving forward. Maybe we move that down. We have a premium, it's a platinum, and then a silver and a gold. So perhaps we just do a silver and a gold and then an HSA instead of offering all of those. So all of that is maybe on the table depending on what those increases come back at.
Perfect. And the last sort of comment, and by the way, I think the way you guys are approaching this is perfect. Okay, so continue doing what you're doing. But I think one of the best ways is maybe you want to do a little survey for our for the staff to just say what is important to you, right? I mean, I was surprised when I did a survey one year in a biotech company. Everybody wanted to wear jeans and T-shirts. It blew my mind away. I said, is that it? Start wearing jeans and T-shirts as long as there's no hole in it. So I think ask the staff what is it that they want. What is important for them. Mm-hmm. So I think when it comes to budgeting, then I think we have a more clear idea. Make sure that things that are important to them keep them, and things that are not as important, we might be spending money on them when we don't need to.
Right.
So that's all. Keep up the great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
A question for the chief about the body cams and the financing for that. Do we have you included then, what's the cost, do we know, of the back room collecting those videos? And have you?
I think I understand the question. So there's a couple of parts to this. I don't have that bid in front of me right now because it's really still to come. These numbers were based on a project that one of my sergeants has. But the breakdown for that is that this is a lease program, and that it also includes in there the housing, if you will, of the storage. Now, where we will shake out with personnel needed to do the redacting, to make the copies and all of that, larger departments have really struggled with that because of just the massive amount of data that they're getting in and they have to go through. Obviously, with our department, we have 23 sworn. That will be reduced, but that's one of the reasons we're looking into the reclassification, but the job description of the property and evidence technician. That based on the type of work that position does with regard to a crime scene investigation, and then also the technical inside job of where does property go, where do we put it, how is it cataloged, all of those things, that there would be room for that position to learn that instead of giving it to technically the police clerk, where it would probably house the easiest, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't have any idea what that looks like yet. And we're, working with our neighbors to see what that looks like based on their number of people, but it's really hard to get those numbers exact. Did that help, sir?
Yeah, that helps me.
Okay.
And I was wondering too, you're discussing with Greenwood Village and your other neighbors about what they're doing as well. Are there potential for cost savings there if we share cloud space and all that kind of thing?
So a lot of agencies around us have already made their choices, and they're already with someone. So that window really doesn't exist. Mr. Savave and I talked about that in a previous year during the budget discussions, and other agencies had already made their choices. It's kind of half and half. I gave that report, I think, to the city manager about with regard to who they went with and why, and then cloud versus on-site storage. That didn't go well for a neighboring agency, and they changed to the cloud, which then cost them quite a bit of money. And then also with regard to our department, we currently have cameras in the cars, video cameras in the cars. Right. We'll have to make a decision because we just recently did that before we knew about having to do body cameras in July of 2023. So those were updated, and I am not comfortable saying we just don't want to use those anymore when it's still good equipment. And the company that we've pretty much decided on can work in tandem. It's the same company that does our dash cams. It's also the same company that supplies our tasers. So we're getting a break later on in the future with regard to replacement of tasers. So the first part of your question, I'm sorry, I kind of gave you too much, is that I can't hop on anybody else's system at this time. But I think for this first year, especially working with Jessica, we put some funding that we tried not to spend into escrow to bring that number down. And then there's still some things possibly, of course, with Foundation that we can work on in the future.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks for that. That's helpful. And then I think the comment was too that Jessica, in November, we'll talk about the forecast. So that's where there'll be some discussions about this. And I had some comments about how much restricted is actually in the Parks and Rec Fund, and we'll be able to talk about that in November, along with other things in the forecast. And I appreciate that.
We might as well just go ahead and say for that November 16th study session, the 3 items for discussion are the four items. You know what? I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop talking.
Right now I have 5 items for discussion. The unrestricted funds that are in the Parks and Recreation Fund, transferring the $1 million the sale of 90 Mead Lane and the payback from the Parks and Recreation Fund to the general fund. And there was another request to increase the sales tax to include online sales tax moving forward, just to see what that would look like instead of the reduction that we have in 2023. So I have 5 scenarios at this point.
And then I think probably also Councilor mentioned making sure that the allotment between Parks and Rec is correct too.
correct.
That's another issue maybe for November as well.
We can analyze the expenditures and make sure that everything that we're allocating to the Parks Fund is being allocated to the Parks Fund and see if there's anything that's
Yeah, I
outstanding.
mean, just the allocation generally. Yeah,
We can look at that
revisit
too.
that.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions. I will say that this is, I did bring up the speed tables, and I mentioned that I was curious about how much they cost and didn't know what it was, but this is the time for all council members to bring up issues if you want to put on the budget, and this is the time to talk about it. Either bring it forward and now, and you can discuss it. You don't need to do it. Obviously, if you pass something in the budget, you don't have to spend it. I mean, it's just a budgeted place. Lots of times we have things in the budget we don't spend. If the action council, it's an issue that I'd like to explore. I'm just starting to talk about it. I've received some comments from citizens about safety of crossing of Highline Canal, and that it's been dangerous there, and that we're looking at what Greenwood Village has done and seeing what their experience is. I mentioned it to their mayor. Their mayor was very enthusiastic about their use. So I just want to put it on the agenda. We can obviously talk about it. And it's up to council, decision council, whether to proceed or not to proceed. But we have at the first reading and second reading of the budget. I would say if there's anything else that council members want for the council to consider, now is the time to do it. It's a time to bring it forward and say we'd like individual council members want to spend money on a particular thing. This is something we should talk about now to put in the budget.
Hey, Jay, a question for you. Help us understand what is driving needing to add another employee?
The big thing is the new maintenance responsibilities at John Mead Park, as well as increasing the maintenance that we do at Quincy Farm. Those are the big things driving that.
Okay.
We've always run a bare bones crew out there, and we're so dependent on weather, and if we have a nice winter, those type of things to get work. But those functions really continue to add a lot to what the guys in the field and parks are trying to get accomplished each year. But those are the two big things.
Are you getting the support? Are you able to hire seasonal guys and gals?
No, we have not been able, in the last 2 seasons, been able to get up to the 6 that we require.
So all the more reason to have
Yeah,
a person there.
yeah. And there's
And that's
really
because you
no-
don't have applicants or because we can't do something?
No, that's because we don't have applicants.
Right, okay.
We have raised the hourly rates, Catherine's always out there checking who's paying what, and we're at the top tier of that, and it seems the larger communities are able to get more of those seasonal kids at a lower rate. It's just a different type of dynamic that we have here.
There are still other communities other than us that are definitely struggling getting seasonals.
And
I do-
full-time.
Yeah, so we're not the only ones in
Yeah.
that.
When we had money budgeted for seasonal, we just didn't spend it. And
Correct.
And again, next year we have some money budgeted for seasonal as well.
Yeah, we have 6 in the budget.
Whether we spend it or not, we don't know. But I agree with it. I personally, I've looked at this. I agree with adding the FTC. I think it's really needed. We're adding parks, we're adding duties, but we're not adding any more people to take care of it. And I've been out. I know the Parks Department does a great job, but there's certainly more that can be done. And
Yeah.
I did have I think some of you know, I had a meeting with former council member Washburn on Mead Park, and there are things that can be done there as well. If we had extra, I think extra staff would be really have a lot to do, and a lot of we could put them to good use with these new parks and the existing parks to really take care of what we have. So, any other comments for the study session?
One
Councilman.
question. One question, and this really is a question, not a statement kind of question. I wonder about the COPs, and there are times when things like sinking funds are set up to start to put monies away to redeem the indebtedness when it becomes due. And I wonder if there's any applicability for us doing that, or whether it's, not a good idea. So maybe that's something that we can look into and see, what kind of counsel we get, maybe from Stiefel or, others that might give us, some direction on that. Now, and what is a speed table again? I think I
So
might have missed that.
if you've been through Greenwood Village, where it crosses the High Line, where the High Line crosses roads in Greenwood Village, they're not a speed bump, but they're actually a concrete table that goes down.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's what.
They have them now at, I think, most every intersection that they have where they cross, where the High Line Canal crosses a street in Greenwood Village, if you go through.
I got it. Thank you very much.
I guess my question as it relates to that is so the $11,450 that was cut from the police budget was cut from capital or police? Just police?
From the general fund police
General fund.
department.
Okay, for police. And the 20,000 that is included in there for speed tables is out of the capital budget?
Capital budget.
Okay.
I thought it was out of Parks and Rec.
It's in the capital fund budget right now. I don't,
It's not really a park, or it's on,
It's a trail. Well, you could say it's a trail.
yeah, I guess you could kind of,
It's,
but
I would imagine it'd be Parks and Rec and a trail. It was a trail improvement.
we'll look and see if we allocated that in the $192,000 that I had pulled from the Parks and Recreation Fund to pay the capital fund expenditures. I do not remember if that was included or not.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that's, anyway, yeah, let us know.
Okay.
I mean,
will.
so I guess that's my point about adding things to the budget. If it means cutting somewhere else, then I don't think we should add it without deciding that that's what we want to do first. If it doesn't necessarily mean that, and I just worry about what that looks like to the community. I think that, that sounds like it's a done deal. And we've been bitten by that in the past as well. So I'm more of a fan of, changing the budget if and when the time comes, and if the funds are available to do that, or having the discussion now and putting it in next year's budget, as opposed to, I don't think that the budget process is the process for making policy decisions like that. And, I don't know where anybody else stands on that issue, but, so I would like to see that not included in the budget at this time.
A little follow-up to that. Maybe it's something we bring out to our citizens in the master plan.
Yeah.
Speed tables.
I think that's probably a good idea, too.
I mean,
I think there's lots of-
delay this maybe
I think-
a year, but we'd be having the discussion in a
Yeah,
year
I'm-
with citizen feedback as opposed to us just doing it. Because I think, if I understood you right, Katie, saying that this has blown up on us in the past, or you said something like that, you're talking about making those kind of improvements to our roads? Speed bumps, basically?
No, I'm saying, let's set aside the funding for the roundabout now, so that we can have the discussion about it. And then it came back that we had already decided because we already budgeted for it.
Right.
That's pretty much exactly what happened.
So for that reason and others, I'd maybe suggest we push this into a
I think that's
master
fine.
plan.
I mean, to be fair, there was a transfer of funds for the roundabout. That's not what we're talking about between two budgets. Anyway, I don't want to get it. I agree completely. It's probably a great master plan issue. I just wanted to raise it and flag it.
Yeah.
I'm happy if council's decision council not to go forward, fine. I think it's attractive. I think maybe it's something we ought to send over to planning and zoning and see if they like that idea as well. So
Great.
And here's our man. He can carry the message, carry the water.
So, Paul, can you get that kind of built into the master planning discussions with Rick, engineering, and the team?
We'll certainly include those in our efforts and recommendations as part of the master plan.
Thank you.
Any other comments for the good? Anyway, from staff, thank you very much, Jessica. That's a very nice presentation. And I think we have 10 minutes. I think we can take a 10-minute restroom break and we'll be back here at 6:30. meeting of the Cherry Hills Village City Council. It's October 5th, 2021. Could I have a roll call of members, please?
Counselor Safavi?
Here.
Counselor Wheel?
Glad to be here.
Counselor Brown?
Here.
Counselor Gallagher?
Here.
Counselor Sheldon?
Here.
Counselor Blum?
Here.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See, we have signed up for the audience participation, Laura Crispin.
Okay. Can you hear me? First of all, I'd like to apologize for my attire. Usually I don't come straight from the barn, so, but I did this time. In front of you, I have given you each an invitation to the Mounted Patrol presentation, which will be at the Village Club, which they will actually be doing an exercise showing you really what they do, how they train their horses, etc. It's just an hour, and although it's labeled a fundraiser, it is really just to introduce the Mounted Patrol to the community around us. And I know that some of you may have questions of Mounted Patrol, and you can get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, if you attend. So that's the first thing. The second thing is on the budget, and I just wanted to caution council when they're talking to the community to not take a Chicken Little, sky is falling approach. I would ask that you not do that. That the city is broke, it has no money, it cannot fund things. Because everyone in this community is very aware of what is going to happen to their assessments in all likelihood in 2 years. And so, I think you need to take that into account and be able to address the fact that in all likelihood, you're going to get some money that exceeds the cost of living, so to speak, in a few years. And the budget woes may be addressed that way or not. I would just caution you to be careful, because people, their response is, well, the city's going to have plenty of money, and then they, of course, quote the asking price for the property on the corner over there. The third thing I want to talk about just for a minute, and it is because I inadvertently sat in on the presentation by First Church. And I think we all learned at that meeting that perhaps the agreement with Brave Church for parking was at issue because Brave Church is now looking at buying or potentially buying First Church. There is nothing wrong with that, and that is not why I'm here. I think it's wonderful if the churches want to buy or sell or whatever. What I am concerned is that the village may have inadvertently given one property owner tremendous leverage over the other, because the other one who's, the number of people there is falling. If you go over there, you know that there are less people there using that church. And that the village might be putting their thumb on the negotiations. So, and I don't think that is the role of the village, and I know for a fact it was not the intent. There's no way you could have known that was could possibly have happened. I don't know, in fact, that they are being leveraged. So I don't want to misrepresent those negotiations. I know nothing about those negotiations. I will say that I do think that having residential there is probably good for the village. And I do think that having multiple churches there may also be good for the church, because they'll have activities at different times because our only concern is parking. To that end, I would ask you to think a little bit out of the box, because we already have a parking agreement with First Church. And perhaps think a little bit out of the box to take that leverage away so that the parties can negotiate in good faith with each other without the village being in the middle of that decision-making process. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chrisman. Next up, reports from cities, boards, commissions. No report. Next, consent agenda. Do I have anybody desire to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull item 6A as in Apple, 6D as in Delta, and 6F as in Frank.
I move to approve consent agenda items.
Is there anybody else who wishes to remove any before me? Okay.
I move to approve consent agenda items 6B, 6C, 6E, and 6G.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Councilor Sheldon.
Okay, just a couple little things here. First is a little bit of I don't know if policy is the right word, but I feel a little strange that we sometimes approve minutes from meetings that we were not at. So 6A is a meeting that I did not attend on, what was the date?
August 31st.
August 31st. And so for me to sit here and approve those minutes, I'm not sure that's appropriate for me to do.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm going to go ahead and abstain from a vote. We can now vote on this one particular matter by itself, and I'm going to go ahead and abstain from it. But I think as a good matter of policy moving forward, if a council member should miss a meeting, I would like to propose that council member should pull the item off the consent and abstain from that meeting, from approving or recommending approval of that item.
I think just making known that they abstain is fine. That's appropriate.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and move?
I move to approve item 6A, the minutes from August 31st, 2021.
Oh, it's a second? Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
And Councilor Sheldon abstained.
Thank you. Item 6D is in Dan or Delta, the Manor Drive agreement. The exhibits were a little messed up in the packet, so I might just suggest, Laura, if you want to walk us through which exhibits are supposed to go with what.
Yeah, I apologize about that. So in the memo, it states that Exhibit A is the Manor Drive paving agreement. It's actually C. In the memo, it states Exhibit B is the streets paving policy, which is actually Exhibit A. And Manor Drive paving map is actually Exhibit B.
Could you take your mask? I'm sorry, Laura. Thank you.
So the Manor Drive paving agreement, instead of being Exhibit A as stated in the memo, is actually Exhibit C. The street paving policy, instead of being Exhibit B, is Exhibit A. And Manor Drive paving map is Exhibit B, instead of Exhibit C as stated in the memo.
Sorry, which one is the cost estimate, which is currently labeled as Exhibit A?
Are you referring to the change order with the asphalt agreement? That's a different item?
I'm looking at the paving, I'm looking at the Exhibit A to Exhibit C, I think. Right? I think Exhibit A to Exhibit C is missing the cost exhibit, but it wouldn't necessarily be in there right now. Is that correct, Jay?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Because we don't have it yet?
No, we have it. It's in the change order on the item.
Next item.
Yeah, it's
D.
Exhibit C of
F.
6C, which you'll see at the top, it's Elite Surface Infrastructure. That's the bid, right? Is that
No,
right?
I'm
Oh,
sorry. I know it's all here. You and I talked about this, and I think it's all
I was
here. I
looking
just
at-
can't
Sorry, I
track
skipped
it.
ahead.
I think, Dan,
Randy, we pull your mask down.
Oh, yeah.
Can we all pull
Yeah.
our masks down when we
Right.
speak? I think it's,
Fair enough.
hopefully it doesn't bother you to do
Yeah.
it, but I have a hard time.
No, I just forgot. The next item in the packet is, says it's 43,657.
The E,
The
that's
cost.
6E as in Edward?
It's not actually an attachment. I think it's the next agenda. Well, it's the memo that says change order to construction contract for the 1021 asphalt capital.
It's item 6E.
Yeah.
E, yeah. Right. Okay. So that's where the cost estimate lies, is within 6E as in Edward, right?
Correct, because the actual contract is with the city, not with the homeowners. That's why we have the agreement with the homeowners.
Okay. I think I'm clear. Has everyone else got it? I'm sorry to confuse everybody if I created more confusion. Okay, moving on to 6.
Oh, wait, sorry, I move to
Oh, sorry, go
approve
ahead.
item 6D, Manor Drive paving agreement.
May I get one clarification? It may be in here and I may have missed it, but if there's an overrun on the cost of the paving, the actual cost, does that go back then to the homeowners? Do we have
Correct.
a provision for that?
Correct. For the escrow, we collect a 5% overage, and then, again, in the agreement, any overage that may go over that is also their responsibility.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay, and my last
there a
item.
second?
Sorry, go ahead.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item.
Okay.
Councilor Sheldon.
Can I go now? Okay, my last item is 6F as in Frank, the slurry seal contract. It just appears that we were missing some kind of map depicting where in the world we were talking about, because all the council communication stated was the intersection of Quincy and Holly, and I didn't know which direction that slurry seal project was going, whether it was going to go south down Holly or east or west down Quincy. And so Jay provided that for us in our handout tonight on the dais. So with that attached now to that, I'm good for a motion.
I move to approve item 6F, the construction contract for the 2021 slurry seal project with the A1 Chip Seal Company.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, to approve 6F. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Councilor Sheldon.
Thank you.
Next up, unfinished business, item 8A, Council Bill 9, Series 2021, amending Chapter 11, Article 1 concerning streets and sidewalks, and Chapter 11, Article 2 concerning public rights of way permits. And this is our second and final reading. Director Goldie.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. On second and final reading tonight, we have Council Bill 9, Series 2021, amending Chapter 11, Articles 1 and 2. There has been a single change made to the council bill since the first reading based on discussion and direction from City Council. The change has been made to, Section 11, 240E, permit required. For further clarification, we took out the word city and added public right-of-way because this may also affect CDOT right-of-way, so we wanted to make sure it covered all of the rights-of-ways within the city. And we added wording stating installation of any private improvements or landscaping that impairs or interferes with the use or maintenance of the public right-of-way, including on-street parking where permitted is prohibited. So this is the item that we spoke about with people putting boulders and other types of landscaping right next to the road. So clarifying that if that does indeed limit the public's use of the right-of-way, that we will have code enforcement enforce that and make sure we get that taken out and not let that happen if they are just trying to do it to eliminate parking, and if it does affect our ability to maintain those rights of ways.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Councilor Wheel.
Jay, just a question on effectivity. Is this retroactive or is it from approval date forward? how does this take effect?
That would be a policy question. Going retroactive would be very hard to enforce. There may be cases where going back retroactive we need to do based on snow removal issues or maintenance issues, but to go back and identify each one of these and retroactively enforce that would be very difficult.
But what if there was a complaint? Are we able, if somebody complains and says, I mean, it kind of seems like we had the right to do that under our former policy anyway, but, because we kind of control our right-of-way, but.
Or in the case if it wasn't permitted, that could be another situation too.
Well, we do, a lot of our code issues are complaint driven. So it is one of those where we could enforce it complaint driven as, if somebody comes to the city and says, I really want to park across from my house, but I can't because of these rocks, then it would become a code issue. And if indeed those weren't permitted, which they probably wouldn't have been because a permit wouldn't have been required to do minor landscaping if it wasn't a large project and somebody just placed some boulders. So we could do it on a complaint-driven process.
But I would just offer, with code enforcement issues like that, there would be some case-by-case specifics. Often the right-of-way line, well, there's a lot of factors that are involved. And if somebody did something not, like rocks are one thing because they'd be easily removed. Trees are another, where what would we do? We require them to uproot the tree when they had no idea where the right-of-way was to begin with. Or I'm just suggesting that is not a silver bullet.
It's not so here's one example I have. So this is on Franklin Street in Fairfax, where if you look at the actual picture on the right side, all that vegetation that goes right up to the edge of the road is actually, that's the edge of the right-of-way. We wouldn't be able to enforce anything on that side of the street.
Wait, sorry. Oh, so sorry. Say that again. Like the.
So on the right, the picture on the right side of that picture.
Is that shown in the map?
That's shown in the map. That
the top or the
is the top, correct. So those three, you can see what the three bushes.
Yep.
Those are the three bushes then on the ground. And these maps, the right-of-way lines aren't perfect, but they're close. So really, if we got a complaint there wouldn't be a lot we could do because the right-of-way is not centered on the road or the road's not centered on the right-of-way.
Well, that's fair enough. It's not in the right-of-way, but, I think.
So it would be a case-by-case issue.
When people build fences in particular, you know where your property line is. You get a surveyor and they come out and they build the fence on the line, which is why there are so many places where the fences are set back, off the side.
Yeah, exactly. And so in this example, the aerial doesn't show the property line real well because obviously the fence is right on the property line. And parking in front of that would be difficult, but you could do it if those rocks were removed.
Councilor Gallagher?
How are we handling short-term construction traffic, this parking in the right-of-way?
If the lot is an acre or over, they have to park on site for all construction. It's a tough one to enforce. Our code enforcement officers spend a lot of time going to construction sites and getting everybody onto the site. And then in our neighborhoods that are R5, they can park on the street as part of their construction staging. So again, it's different in each zoning district.
And when Jay says I'm part of the construction staging, that's a plan they file too. So they have to agree with. So if there are issues about where we can park, they can be addressed at that meeting, the construction meeting, and get approval before they start.
Well, how does that relate then to the people who came and raised their complaint about the construction vehicles parking on the street? Why were they not
across, down on Tufts.
Yeah.
So the hard part about that particular issue was there were certainly instances where contractors were parking inappropriately. Unfortunately, there are also instances where the contractors were parking appropriately. And I think sometimes, once you get annoyed and you're sort of, you're on cue for it, you start to notice it, even when and then all of a sudden it starts to get complicated and contextual. And, so I think there are the enforcement side of it is never cut and dry. It's never easy. Where's the right-of-way line? Can they park on the grass? Can they not park on the grass? Is it a contractor's truck who's there as a part of a construction project, or is it a contractor's truck who's part of the annual maintenance or the weekly maintenance that they do? It could be the same company doing both that has the same painting on the side of their truck. I think Jay's absolutely correct. It depends on the circumstances of that particular street, of who's parking there, what's been constructed, what was in place.
Just say if it's an acre or more, you have to park on the property.
That's right. And so the folks who complained, there were definitely people who were there for construction projects who were not parking on the lot. Now, 80% of the lot was torn up and there really wasn't any place to park. Nonetheless, that's their problem.
I was about to say, it's not their problem.
That's right.
But yeah.
With that said, different trucks from the same company were there to do work on another lot, right? Maintenance work on another lot. And so sometimes that gets, what are they here for then? And they then start going to talk to those contractors directly, and those contractors are like, what's going on? So there are absolutely violations in those cases, no doubt about it. And that's when Jay mentions our code enforcement folks are out there quite often. That's often what they're working on, but it's not an absolute, right? So
No, but I think in the case that we're talking about, if Hunts and Tufts and all of that, can we just issue tickets if they're parking illegally? I mean, it was like, I felt like the city was sort of in a, kind of tied our hands, we behaved as though our hands were tied behind our backs. I mean, are there some recourse that we have? Because it was one thing to tell them once, and, FedEx parcels not being delivered and all kinds of other stuff because the street was blocked. But it was repetitive times that your guy was out there, and we're burning up his time on this mission. And Sundown, I believe, was the major offender. They were, they said all the right things, but they didn't do all the right things. And it felt to me like, just start slapping tickets on their windshields or something like that for illegal parking, and maybe they'll get the message.
we certainly have the legal authority to write tickets in that. I will tell you, I don't believe that there were any no parking signs on that particular aspect of it beyond the right of way. I know that we've had, I'll phrase it this way, and I'll look to you guys. In previous jurisdictions I've had where you don't sort of set the rules out very clearly, judges are sometimes hesitant to, no pun intended, go down that road with doing much as far as fines, et cetera. But I'm not sure what our practice has been here with that kind of enforcement.
And I apologize, I'm not familiar with the Tufts situation. I don't know if I wasn't here for that council meeting, but often it can be cut and dry if there is a new construction over 1 acre. They have to be parked on there as long as they're part of that construction. Often if there's not room, and sometimes the contractor will say, park on the street, I'll pay the fine. It's easier to do it that way. And so that's when the code officer's out there multiple times, and they're like, just write the ticket, I'll show up in court. And so it becomes an ongoing and escalating. So again, there's no black and white. And we do often see where they want to get a project done so quickly, and they can't let anyone park on the site because they're on their last landscaping and all the site's done, they'll pay those tickets, and you know, there's only so much we can do.
But yes, we can issue tickets.
Exactly. That was really it. I don't want to take us down the details of that situation, but it seems like there's tools at our disposal should we want to escalate it, and that's good.
And I think, I don't want to take the attorney's time, but I just answered Councilor Wheel's question directly. Normally, ordinances are prospective. So normally ordinances are prospective. So if we make a change, it goes forward.
Yes. Thank you for that, Mayor.
It would be rare to have it go backwards unless we said that. If we said it, we
Well, then
but even then,
I wouldn't be doing that.
even,
probably, because
I would take counsel of our council and not do that. No, but-
having notice of what is a violation is a good idea before you want to enforce that
and
violation.
that's the idea is you have to know what this rule is before you can violate it.
And my intention really wasn't that, you know, we start turning loose a squad of people up and down the easements or anything like that. But I think it's a satisfactory position to say, well, you know, it's complaint driven and it's case by case, and we'll just deal with them as they come up, because we may find that, you know, there were things done that weren't permitted. There's going to be a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, and we'll just wrestle with those when the complaints come in.
And I'd just like to add, just for context, in Article 2 of your code, public right-of-way permits, there's a specific purpose and objective section to start off, and it indicates that, yes, the public right-of-way, the public use of the public right-of-way is primary, but it does acknowledge that there's a balance with private use, to be, you know, that public and private uses of public rights-of-way should, in the interest of the general welfare, be accommodated. The city must ensure that the primary purpose of the public right-of-way, which is the passage of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, is protected. And so it sets out some objectives and some means by which those principles and that purpose can be accomplished. There is a balance that has to happen. And that's, I think, what staff has been explaining, is that they try and strike that every day in a means that provides adequate notice for folks and enforcement options if necessary.
All right, any other comments before we have a motion? All for motion.
Just a quick question here.
Sure.
Maybe Jay or Chief can answer this. What is the scale of this issue, problem? How often do you get a call that, hey, you know, this is going on and you need to do something about it? Is it once a month, 10 times a month? What is it?
I wouldn't know. I don't have that answer, Chief.
I don't think I have an answer either, but obviously during the spring and summertime when construction is high, and then it has to do with the degree of the project. If it's a remodel, you usually don't struggle. If it's a scrape, which many of these are, that requires a lot more time, a lot more different contractors to be there at different times. And then you get into the situation where you have multiple contractors there at the same time. And, you know, there's not a lot of room. So I would tell you in the summertime, I would say that John and Tim go out. Paul, you probably help me. It depends on how many permits we have open at any given time. And then we had a problem, I think, in a couple situations this last year where we had multiple permits open in the same area, which caused this to happen. So I would tell you that I would think that one was a little bit more rare, but you know, when we do get, I guess the bottom line is when we do get a complaint, the code officers do go out and they do try to do what we always do, warn and educate the first time, second time write some tickets.
Okay, so it's sporadic. It comes and goes. So when they go to educate, is it that they actually... So the thing is that there's so many contractor and subcontractor and subcontractor. And you know, it's the question of, you know, do the information, you know, that your folks offer as where they can park and where they cannot park, does it get disseminated with the rest of the team? Probably not.
Well, you would hope that you would go to the general contractor who would push that information down to everyone.
Right.
That's what you're hoping to do? And then the education that they should be getting when they're pulling the permit about these different issues that we have, they should be getting it up front then too.
Right. So to me, you know, what you're doing is exactly what I would have proposed, that you educate them, but after that, you start giving tickets.
Correct.
And
we've done that.
And if they say, I didn't know, well, you know, talk to the guy that we talked to.
Correct.
He was in charge. So that makes sense. Okay. Thank you for clarifying
You're
that.
welcome.
Any other questions for staff or comments before we vote on this? This is second and final reading.
I move to approve on second and final reading Council Bill 9, Series 2021, a bill for an ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village, amending Chapter 12, Article 1, concerning streets and sidewalks, and Chapter 11, Article 2, concerning public right-of-way permits.
Second.
A motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, need a roll call.
Counselor Safavi?
Yes.
Counselor Wheel?
Yes.
Counselor Brown?
Yes.
Counselor Gallagher?
Yes.
Counselor Sheldon?
Yes.
Counselor Blum?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is 9A. Council Bill 10, Series 2021, to rezone a parcel of land owned by the Lynn Welsh Puana Living Trust located at 8 Cherry Hills Drive from R2 to R3 and amending the official zoning map consistent therewith. This is first reading, and we probably need a little explanation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Give a little. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This item on your agenda this evening is a request for a rezoning from the city's R2 zone district to the city's R3 zone district. Staff has brought forth this request as staff believes there's an obvious error in the rezoning of the property in 1981. The short version is that at the second reading, staff will provide more detail related to what the exact error was. However, in 1981, there was an inadvertent motion that included the subject property in a rezoning petition rather than exclude the subject property in the rezoning petition. But it was carried forward into the ordinance that was adopted by council, and because the ordinance is the legal instrument that changes the zoning, the new ordinance is necessary in order to change it back to the R2 zoning. Excuse me, the R3. Let's keep the record straight, right?
All right.
The subject property, it's located on the south side of Cherry Hills Drive. It's generally surrounded by other single-family detached homes other than to the south, which is the Cherry Hills Country Club. It's about an acre in size, and as I mentioned, it's currently zoned R2. It is important to note that the approval of this council bill on this first reading does not approve or indicate approval of the requested rezoning at the second reading. The approval on first reading will simply set the date of the future public hearing and second reading consistent with allowing an applicant the requisite process and hearing opportunity provided for in the city's code. Specifically, 4.2 of the city's charter and section 16-7-350C of the municipal code requires an affirmative vote of the majority of members of the entire city council on the second reading. So with that, staff would recommend that council approve Council Bill 10, Series 2021, a bill for an ordinance of the Cherry Hills Village to rezone a parcel of land owned by the Lynn Welch Puna Living Trust located at 8 Cherry Hills Drive. Specifically, let's get the details right, from R2 to R3 and amending the official zoning map consistent therewith on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for the November 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting.
Do we have any, thank you, do we have any questions from council for staff?
Okay. I move to approve Council Bill 10, Series 2021, a bill for an ordinance of the City of Cherry Hills Village to rezone a parcel of land owned by the Lynn Welch Puna Living Trust located at 8 Cherry Hills Drive from R2 1.25 acre residential to R3 1 acre residential and amending the official zoning map consistent therewith on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for the November 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting.
Second.
A motion is second. I take it no further discussion? If not, we'll take a roll call. Thanks, Laura.
Counselor Safavi?
Yes.
Counselor Wheel?
Yes.
Counselor Brown?
Yes.
Counselor Gallagher?
Yes.
Counselor Sheldon?
Yes.
Counselor Blum?
Yes.
Next up is agenda item 9B, which is Resolution 28, Series 2021, adopting amended construction and excavation standards for work in public rights of way. Director Goldie.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of council. In accordance with and supplemental to Chapter 11, Article 2, the City of Cherry Hills Village Municipal Code, these standards establish the minimum design and technical criteria for all work in the public right-of-way. From time to time, staff brings these to council for updating and corrections. And the last time we did this was in 2017, so it's been a few years. These are the principal document that we use when permitting and managing all work in the right-of-way. This includes both streets and trails. The document is intended to give permit holders all the necessary information needed to lawfully work within the rights-of-ways. The standards also ensure the traveling public are safe while construction is happening in the right-of-way. And we want to make sure that each permittee is responsible for the full cost of returning their disturbed areas to an equal or better condition than prior to the work being started. So the standards and permit costs being presented by staff tonight are consistent with Chapter 11 of the City Code. Staff is requesting the changes to these standards to meet the changing technologies and practices being utilized by contractors, utilities, and residents within the rights-of-way. And all fees that have been recommended have been set to offset the direct costs incurred by the city to manage and oversee any work taking within the right-of-ways. So in your packet are the full recommended changes. I am just going to hit the major changes here. We have not included grammatical changes and those type of things. These are actual substantive changes that we are recommending to these standards. All right, and you can follow along. The pages that are mentioned on these slides are the pages that are in the Construction and Excavation Standards Exhibit A that are marked up, so you can see the full wording and writing in those. The first one is clarifying that the city at its discretion may require the permittee to perform the asphalt repair. This is for larger major permits. We always try to work with the contractor or utilities. If we have a paving project that we know of that is coming up in the next year or two, we always try to give them the option to put the money into escrow and let us do that as part of our paving operations. We feel we get a better product. We oversee exactly what's going on, and we have full control over that. More and more as we move forward in our right-of-way and street maintenance program, we're doing less and less paving. We don't have a lot of paving projects going on. We do a lot of maintenance with the chip seal. But we wanted to clarify that the city will work with the utilities, but it's up to the city's discretion as to whether we will do that paving or not. Because if we don't have a project coming up, it's not worth our time and staff time because of the added costs for us to take over those projects. So we will then require the contractors to do that paving at the time. This is just a clarification. When work takes place in gravel roads, the patches, we've always required the patch to be safe, but a gravel road takes time to rework all those materials back into a single piece of street. And so we just wanted to clarify that the contractor is required to bring in the new materials, make the street safe and travelable, but part of the permit fee is staff coming in on our normal maintenance and blending all of those materials together and bringing the street back to its previous condition. It's just a clarification because we have some questions. Why am I getting charged for this fee if I'm required to bring it up to this standard? It's because of that ongoing work that's needed in the future. Clarification on page 3 of bonds and certificates of liability. This one is for occupancy and rights-of-way permits. We currently require 2-year permits for everything that we do in the rights-of-way. Occupancy and driveways are low impact normally to the streets. And so we have a lot of homeowners that are overseeing their own driveway reconstruction, and the 2-year bond is hard when you're trying to pull a bond on your personal insurance on your home. And so we found that we can do these 1-year bonds and make this work, and it still covers the city to make sure that we are covered, that all the repairs are made properly, and that we have 1 year for any damage that does come up due to that construction. Makes it a lot easier when, for those type of things. Staff doesn't have to track those bonds for 2 years. And so this is just a request to drop the bond requirement to 1 year for those types of permits. Landscaping permits. 2 things on this one. This brings in the changes from Chapter 11 that we just discussed. Again, just reiterating that you are not able to place landscaping in front of your home that would reduce the ability for people to park lawfully, for the city to do maintenance. So we've reiterated that in this, as this is a document that works hand in hand with Chapter 11. And we wanted to make sure that we clarified that if you do make improvements that are permitted or not permitted, that you are able to do without a permit, that the city will not be responsible for maintaining those those improvements. This becomes a big issue on city mains that we do maintain, Quincy, Colorado. People want to have nice bluegrass right out to the edge of the street, which is fine. But the city, we don't have the staff. We don't mow those weekly like bluegrass needs to be. So we just want to clarify that the residents, if they do improve any rights of ways, that they are responsible for that.
Jay, can I just say one thing there?
Yes.
When I read that wrong, and I wonder if other people might as well. I read it as this includes improvements made to the rights of way maintained by the city. And I said it out loud there the way it's meant, but I thought the maintained by the city modified the improvements.
That makes sense. We will.
So there just might be an opportunity
I think there's some
to be
clarification there. I agree.
more specific there.
Okay.
I was like, the city maintains the improvements, but they're responsible for me. Got it. Like, no, I was wrong about that.
No, that makes sense.
Changes after, right?
Yes. So in some of our discussions as we were trying to move forward with fiber optics and cell towers and those types of things, we do have the ability to get some of that information from these contractors, especially the utility contractors. So we just wanted to clarify, it's already our right to ask for these. We just want to clarify it in these standards that if you're doing a major installation, you're going to be required to give the city information of your locates as well as your new construction. So this will help us start to build a better information and database of where do we have these types of cables, fibers, and will help us in the future as we try to expand and improve communication for our residents. This is just a clarification as of the different paragraph, same issue, making sure we get as-builts of that so we have all of that information again. Because we do a lot of chip seals and maintenance on our streets, trying to keep them at a higher level, we need to clarify that when we do that, it's our streets. We're going to make sure that if it changes the elevation of the streets, the utilities that have manholes, handholds, anything in our street, we're going to make them responsible for raising or lowering those improvements, because first and foremost, it's a street for travel, for public. Secondly, it's right of way for them to put their utilities in. We just want to be clear that the utilities are going to cover the cost to make sure that you're not rattling your teeth on manholes as you're driving down the street. So this is probably the most significant proposed change. We have been running into a lot of trouble with private improvements in the right-of-way for HOAs that have been within the city for years, 50s, the 60s, and there is no documentation of where are these improvements, what are they? Are they power sources, sprinkler systems for all of these entry features? And as we do projects, whether it's undergrounding or utilities just coming in to do their normal work, they do what they're supposed to do, call 811. And these private improvements are not located. It's the responsibility of the owners of those to register with 811 and absorb those costs for locating those improvements. If they do not locate them, then the utility contractor cannot be held liable, the city cannot be held liable for those costs. And often, the city ends up as the middleman in this situation, and we have absorbed those costs in the past. In 2018, 811 state law was changed. So we would suggest that if this is approved, staff would try to get a hold of all known HOAs, whether they have improvements or not, send out the information that they need to register their improvements in the city's rights-of-way with 811. It's going to be their responsibility to pay somebody to come out and figure out where all those improvements are, and then every time 811 calls, it's their responsibility to send somebody out and mark those. If they don't do it and they're damaged, it's their responsibility to pay for those, not the utility companies. So this is a major change. It is actually just keeping up with state law.
Jay, question for you. It says any owner operator fails to register shall be presumably liable. Maybe that's a question for the city attorney, what that means, presumably.
That's
liable.
directly from the statute.
What's that?
There's a presumption that's incorporated into the statute that imposes this obligation.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to take off my mask.
Jay, were your issues with this older HOAs or newer HOAs that you mentioned?
Older. Well, and most of our HOAs have been established for more than 20 years. Some of the improvements were part of the subdivision agreements, and we have a little more record, but some of them were just put in when the subdivisions were built, and the city just kind of said, okay, that's fine.
I'm just, it's a practical matter. I think when they get this notice, the older HOAs, they have no idea where things, so they're just going to throw it away because they have no idea where anything's located, right? I mean, but at least it may create a presumption for us, but
yeah,
there's things underground that nobody knows where they are.
Yeah. And we've got one going on with the undergrounding right now, and that's what really brought this. But every time we do a street improvement project, some of the old wires are right under the pavement or the drain pan. And as soon as we peel it up, we've peeled up the wire because it was just laid down before the pavement was put in. So, but I think having it documented is going to really help the city.
And this is not Excel. This is not. Those are all pretty well. They know where their lines are.
Yeah.
This is
private improvements that we have no record of.
So if they don't, if they don't go out and have it located and send back some as-built or whatever to the city, and construction occurs and stuff gets damaged, it is the HOA's responsibility at that point?
It is.
Because they didn't go out and as-built it.
Well, they need to as-built it and then locate it every time 811 notifies them, because they will have, once they as-built it, they have to provide a map to 811. And anytime any contractor calls up and says, we have a project in this area, they'll be notified, and they have to have somebody come out and physically locate those each time. Now, with, we're very small and have 141 homes in our sewer district. Ralph is probably doing 40 to 50 of these locates a week.
Okay, so
That's going to be
here's-
you, Dan, for your HOA.
Here's my concern, though. Mayor brought it up. I think these HOAs are going to get this notification, and most HOA managers or presidents are going to look at this and go, I don't even know what this means. What am I supposed to do with this? And they're not going to send it off to their attorney if they have one. I think maybe maybe you're already planning on doing this, but we need to craft a layman's terms letter that goes along with this request to them that says, here's what happens if you don't.
No, I had planned on that, giving them my information. I can sit down with anybody, explain to them. But yeah, we wanted to make sure that, we just want to make sure that we are no longer,
Right. I get it.
Like I
We're
said,
out of
we become the middleman, and, Excel ruined our entry feature for a project the city requested. And now here we have a $6,000 bill to fix that.
The good news is, I think the state has produced some very user-friendly pieces of information related to the state bill that passed that did the same thing. And so I think we can lean heavily on some of that documentation.
Yeah.
Granted, some of the citations are going to be different, obviously. But there's already some really good user-friendly and layman terms documents that exist.
But Dan, I would like to do maybe an article in the Crier. They just try to get everything
I just
out
know
there.
that there's a lot of our HOAs that are barely hanging on by a thread because the interest is not there amongst the owners. They have a hard time getting boards. People are going to look at this and just not.
Yeah.
It's going to get stepped aside, I fear, and I just don't want there to be an issue down the road where an HOA that doesn't charge any dues, they take voluntary donations, which we have a number of, and they collect $600 a year for their 100 homes or whatever it is in random, donations. They all of a sudden get a $6,000 invoice from a utility contractor to go put the street back together.
And they wouldn't get an invoice. The contractor would just say, you're out. If you want to get it fixed, call your own contractor. But and you have to understand it's to protect them too, because if it hasn't been located and they're just trying to do their job, they shouldn't be liable.
I think
for
we're all
those
saying the
things.
same thing. However we can best communicate that with our
I agree.
I
HOAs.
think it's going to be a difficult thing for HOAs to comply with. I mean, I didn't realize that that's how that worked, that when you call for the locate, that each person's, I thought there was just a company that comes out and looks at whatever the map is and marks everything, and I didn't realize everybody's coming out and marking
Everybody has their own
stuff. Like, who on earth is going to, like I said, it's going to be you. I don't have an HOA, so there.
But do you have lighted entry features?
Not in my neighborhood.
Okay. This is a clarification that testing will not be required for minor installations, as we require flow fill and flash fill. Flow fill and flash fill is designed to meet the densities without manual compaction. We just wanted to clarify that we're not requiring compaction testing if flow fill or flash fill is used. This is another one where the city becomes a third party. So we want to make sure that contractors they're required to document pre-construction conditions, video or pictures of the street, rights of ways. So then when we get the calls from the neighbors that their yards were torn up or whatever it is, that the contractor has to have evidence that they didn't do that or it was already in the condition that it's in now. So again, just trying to help us work with the residents and contractors as work takes place in the right of way.
you saying that the burden of proof is going to be put on to a contractor to prove that he did not do something?
Yes, that's how we do it now. We were just clarifying that. So if the contractor, if it's more of when a homeowner comes and says, well, the contractor broke my driveway where it touches the road type thing. The contractor should have pictures that, no, it was already broke before the project started, so we're not liable. It's
Seems
just
like
one of those things that.
Seems like a lot to ask of a contractor to go out and video.
Yeah.
all
No,
the
we
surrounding-
we ask them to do it now. This is just requiring them to do it. They all do it. They all, especially the big contractors and the utilities, they have no problem doing it. Most municipalities are asking or requiring this now, just to try and mitigate those issues of people just trying to get something for nothing.
Yeah.
Now, if the video shows that they did do damage because it was in a better shape than it is now, then we work on getting that contractor to make those fixes. Because we do see so much utility work now, and I'm sure you've all seen how much paint ends up out in the streets. A lot of the times it ends up on landscape, rock up fences. We just want to hold whoever is doing that work liable and make them come out and clean those things off. There's no reason to do a mark up a fence if you can put a flag right in front of the fence, those type of things. So we want to make sure that we are getting our improvements and our homeowners' improvements, keeping them free of paint when possible. This is just a clarification, technical clarification on tracking pads and what forms of pads we'll require based on our stormwater permitting requirements. Another clarification, micro trenching is not something that we see often. We do get requests for it every once in a while. It is a great process. It does really make construction go fast, but the long-term issues that the city is stuck with is not worth the front-end help to the utility contractors, so we don't allow that in pavement. And so this is just a clarification on that. This is a requested update for the fee schedule, changing the gravel road to the 500 to meet our costs, as well as for major permit fees, raising the daily fee for our inspector to go out and look at that from $60 to $75. Again, just to cover the city's costs. I can answer any questions at this time.
Questions for Jay?
Just a quick question. When you say these increases or the price you have come up with, is it just based on the estimate? It's based on, how do they come up with these increases?
This increase is that because of the way we do major permits and how we inspect those, this is the increase in the actual salary cost of that person going out and doing it.
Okay. Okay, so there's an actual calculation.
There's an actual
that is done.
calculation.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. That's all.
I have a question. A question about bonds. Do you still use bonds and a lot of this stuff? Or I know they're in here, $5,000 bonds and stuff. Do you? Bonds are kind of expensive, and we don't. Other issues we stopped using them. Other business I'm associated with just because they have a fee and yada yada, and there's ways around them. Have you ever called a bond, or do you have someone tracking the bonds? Who does that?
Pamela tracks all the bonds. We have luckily not called on any bonds, but bonds are, for us, the easiest way to go. The fees are about 0.5% to 1%, so they're not huge on these right-of-way bonds. they're the easiest way for us to track on those. And yes,
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize fees are so low. Who's is a bank? Where are they getting them? The bonds?
either through their insurance company or through a private bond company.
Yeah, I was going to suggest having straight deposits can be easier. You know, you can just take a deposit and then return it when they're, you know, if they've completed, they're done. They don't,
Well, it's keeping that $5,000, $10,000 in the bank for 2 years because we have the 2-year warranty period, and that bond has to be active for that whole warranty period.
that's probably a lot of, like you said, you haven't ever called a bond. That's a lot of work that goes into that all the time, keeping track of those bonds and getting them back and everything. And I don't know. You know, if you think that's the best way to do it, I'm just.
Yeah, I think it's the most efficient way for us to do it.
Another consideration would be an irrevocable letter of credit that doesn't tie up the cash, but it's a document that you could file, and people, they're going to have the financial capacity to make that happen. But it circumvents.
That's what we do in law, and the legal attorneys don't use bonds anymore.
Yeah.
For courts, we use letters of credit if we need to do something because they're much more flexible and they're cheap, and you don't have to pay away the money. You just have it's basically a contractual agreement. The bank has the money on deposit owned by the individual, you know, so that they don't lose it, and then they agree to pay it over. They're much more flexible and much cheaper. That's why, you know, bonds and legal bonds are expensive. So I was surprised that the bonds are so cheap here.
I do know that in some other jurisdictions, they are, with some of the larger bonds, they are allowing letters of credit. I just know that anecdotally, they're a lot more difficult for the administrative side than the bonds.
Yeah, they can't. They need to be negotiated because there's not a form for them to be negotiated separately.
For projects of the size that Public Works is talking about, frankly, limiting it to bonds probably makes sense.
Yeah, well, I was bringing up just a straight deposit, but as you said, it might be more complicated than the bonds. But it's too bad since you never call them, but it takes you so much time. Anyway, I guess maybe that you have to have them. I think you have to, because otherwise, if you didn't have them, then they would then they would skip town. Yeah. All right.
I move to approve Resolution 28, Series 2021, adopting amended construction and excavation standards for work in public rights-of-way. I further move to authorize the city attorney to make such changes as may be needed to correct any non-material errors or language.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That passes unanimously. Final item, just a discussion item, update from City Manager Kramer on Quincy Farm.
Yes, this is basically just a placeholder as an extension from the discussion we had last time, just to see if there was any more immediate follow-up concerns regarding the discussion. Staff has nothing to present at this time. However, it is still on the agenda just to ensure if there's any feedback, questions, or comments from City Council. And I should note, just so council's aware, we do have a follow-up discussion scheduled at the next council meeting with, I believe, staff. We're going to have a proposal for next steps and specifically how to move forward with an MOU.
Right. Any questions for City Manager on that? Thank you, Chris. Moving forward to reports then, quickly, report on CML. I attended with Chris and the city attorney and Councilor Wheel. We were all there, and it was actually I thought it was very good. It was very nice to be back in person. It was at Westminster, so it was very convenient and well attended. I also went to I've been attending the CML district meetings. I went to Victor, and which was a neat time. I wanted to also call out, I sure you report on it from the staff about the master plan meeting. I thought that was excellent. I'm glad. I thought the turnout was better than I had thought it would be. So, and I thought the comments were very good, and I thought the people were the citizens were very appreciative of having their input. So thanks for doing that and putting that on. Today we had the audit committee, and there's some good news for Jessica. Actually, our CML dues will go down because we're reforming. We have to balance, the CML dues are based on a balance of population, sales tax, and property valuations. And over time, they've gotten skewed. And so because we're going to rejigger it, and that means we're going to little reduction for Cherry Hills Village. And there are other issues that don't concern concern us, but we'll pressure on. Metro Mayor's Caucus, that's tomorrow. We're meeting for the first time in person again after 1.5 years, I think. So we're meeting downtown. And then another meeting. Then tomorrow night, I'm going to Trinidad for a district meeting, one of the final ones. And on Friday, there's a CML Policy Committee. We'll be meeting by Zoom, and we will be taking up some proposed legislation. We're going to talk about Excel. So,
What time is that meeting, Mr. Mayor?
pardon me.
What time is that meeting?
That meeting, I think, is at 11 o'clock. It's a Zoom meeting. And I can send you the Zoom. Okay, that's a policy committee on Friday. That's it. That's all I had to report. Any other reports?
I echo the mayor's comments on the master plan open house. I thought that was very informative. And the input or the feedback we got, I thought was very good too. One other thing on the exotic car show, Emily, I think you did a great job there. And my 4-year-old grandson now loves the word exotic. For what it's worth.
Two quick things, Jay, both for you. In our packet, and I think I've already put it in the recycle bin, but there was a map as part of the pavement discussion that we had at one point. And it showed little stubs along Mansfield. Are those the aprons? What are those?
Those were the drain pans. They were color coded for concrete. So there's some additional pans that we are going to put in because we're having some drainage issues and always have for decades at Mansfield in Colorado. But then there's improvement to broken pans up there that would be replaced.
That's what those little stubs that
Little
were kind
stubs
of
across the street.
perpendicular to the street?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. That was number one. And number two, I'm hoping you might be able to give us an update on the undergrounding.
Well,
Last I looked, our last set of minutes from the 21st said that, and this was, you're reporting just what you're being told, and I get that, but that Excel's sub reported that they would be starting by the end of the month, which was a week ago now.
yes. So I contacted Excel again yesterday. They told me that they would be starting today, and the only vehicle that was out there today was the Locate company. So I keep pushing them as hard as I can. I hope to, if they're not out there tomorrow, I will make another call.
Yeah, I come back to it. I don't know exactly who we might reach out to, but at some point,
We've reached out to the liaison, government affairs liaison. We've tried to hit this from 3 or 4 different angles, and Jay and I both talked about this yesterday. Fingers crossed before tonight's report. We were really hoping that those trucks are going to be out there, and so late today, our heads dropped as we realized we wouldn't have that bit of good news.
okay. No report. Thank you.
It was great to see Quincy Farm activated this weekend. On Sunday, they had the farm walk, and a couple hundred people showed up, and a lot of volunteers. It was a beautiful day, and I think they were very pleased. Land Preserve was pleased with it, and more than anything, it was just great to have people on that site and walking both the east side and the west side. And the second point, show of hands, who has seen the property at Quincy and Franklin that has had the trees cut? Everyone?
No, I
So
haven't.
it is, it's just,
the vacant.
yeah, it's just a affront to your senses, and it goes against the character of this city. We have a master plan, and we talk about character of the city, and the complaints that have come in to our city are significant, and this is something that we've got to address the timing. You can't, I understand the landowner can do what they did, but the timing on it is, it's now been, what do you think, Jake? 2 months that from the time the trees were cut down, and we still don't have construction. taking place. What's that?
They still haven't submitted their permit.
Yeah, it's,
And aren't there requirements to grind the stumps down 6 inches below?
Without a building permit, there is no requirements for any of that. You're allowed to
Vacant lot,
remove
yeah.
whatever you want. Is it up to a year before your building permit? So there's really nothing the city can do at this point until they do put in their permit. Then there is a tree replacement requirement if it's within 1 year of the time those trees came down.
Wait, explain that again. So let's assume for a second it was 20 trees that were all on average 24 inches around. I'm guessing that's about what it was. They were huge trees and a ton of them.
right.
Do they have a inch per inch caliper replacement that they have to do by our code, or how?
Only if there's a building permit. If they leave it vacant for more than a year, there's no requirement if I read the code properly.
That's correct, but there is, as part of the tree mitigation, when they remove as part of their building permit, if submitted within that year, there is a replacement provision such as you're talking about.
But if it's more than a year, there's no provision?
If you just
That's
want to
correct.
cut your tree down, you can do it.
That's correct.
You're not required to replace
So-
all your
I
trees.
know that
Right.
it seems logical in our everyday life that if you wanted to take a tree down in your own backyard, you should be able to do it in your front yard, but this was just.
No, I know, it's a huge bummer, but that is, the way it's written is that you don't have to replace every tree you cut down on your lot. I mean,
So if they wait longer than 1 year, there's no requirement. to
That's correct.
replace
The way the
this.
code is currently written.
I'd be interested in looking at that code provision.
We have got to
can do that.
review that code.
That doesn't sound right, to wait a year.
Well, and to boot, there is a property in the 4700 block of South Downing that has done the same thing. Not to the gravity of what we see at the Franklin and Quincy intersection, but it's significant. If you walk by there, you go, oh my gosh, what just happened? And my point is that is not in character with this city.
The good news is, I think from a practical standpoint, I'm guessing that the majority of the time that happens, you're going to see a development permit or a building permit follow pretty quickly, the majority of the time. Now, maybe somebody's buying a lot and they just don't have any real long-term plans. They just want to scrape those trees, knowing full well that if they get them down, then only got to wait a year, and then they don't have to replace 400 new small trees or 25 new giant trees or whatever it is. But I don't think, my guess is that our residents are not purposely trying to skirt the requirement. They're probably getting ready, I would think, to break ground on a new build. That'd be wouldn't we all assume that that's the case?
You would assume it, but here, to Paul's point, there is no permit.
Not yet.
So, and hopefully, in the next.
Why take the trees down when you don't have a permit yet? I mean, that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Preparation, I would go do some clearing and grubbing of a site, ready to go, waiting the second I get my
Permit to start
I
moving,
can
to start
go.
moving the earth, yeah.
That's a common approach.
Yeah.
Well, I do know the builder, and the builder's a great builder. I mean, it's too bad.
They are, and our staff has been in contact with the contractor, and they do fully intend to submit a permit before this year period does expire. But to your point, in this interim condition, it is noticeable.
But they're aware of the tree replacement
Oh, yeah,
requirement.
they're very aware of it. They did a tree survey before they cut them down. They're preparing their permit to comply with our tree mitigation.
Yeah, and I think actually some of those trees were going to come down. They were very old, but some of them I thought could have been saved. So it's too bad we didn't have the conversation. I mean, rather than just take them all out.
Yeah, and maybe we just, as a community, need to review the code. And look, all trees were taken down, perimeter trees that will never be in the building envelope. Right. So.
But that, again, I can cut down a tree on my property if I want to. I realize you like them, but, I do, yeah, we can have the discussion. I just, we're not an HOA, we're a city council.
Right.
And we're not here to enforce one person's taste over another person's taste. And, if I want to cut down a tree because it's any reason, and there are legitimate reasons to want to cut down really large trees, then that's kind of my prerogative on my own property.
Do we know how other comparable jurisdictions might handle the same issue?
I would offer that our tree replacement schedule is one of the more robust in the metro area. I think there's a number of jurisdictions that have 0 tree replacement requirements.
I was on council when that was passed, and it was not grossly controversial, but there are people who are opposed to even that. I mean,
Well, maybe what we should do, and I'm not suggesting we pass something, because I very much see both sides of a discussion on this, but we do keep kind of a running list of things that we want to update in our next iteration of code updates. We keep kind of a running list. Maybe we add this to that running list and at least have it for discussion in 2 months or 6 months or a year and a half, whenever it is we talk about them again, have enough critical mass of code items to go talk about to make it worth cracking it open again. Maybe we put that on that list.
Yeah, I think we can take a look at it. I remember I was on council as well when that was it, and I thought we struck a pretty good balance between an owner's right to property versus, not, the issue that we saw was it was spec builders coming in because it's so much easier for them to take out all the trees.
Blank slate.
But the owner probably would have wanted those trees, right? But it's easy for construction, but for the neighbors and even for the owner, if that's a oak tree or something that's they can be very valuable and very, So anyway, that was what we struggled with, and I thought we came up with a pretty good balance. It is not oppressive. I mean, you can do what it's private property and do your thing, but it set out basically, hey, here's some reasonable accommodations to. I thought it was good, but we can always visit it again, and I didn't realize that if you can wait any. I do think it's unlikely, but why? I think a year just sounds kind of short.
yeah. Well, and it has to have some time frame, because how do you determine whether cutting the tree down was related to construction or not? I mean,
But we can certainly bring that back as part of our housekeeping code amendments for discussion.
Where were we? I'm sorry. Councilor Brown.
So I just had a couple things. Obviously the car show, I actually was not able to attend this year, but luckily my son is now able to attend on his own. He rode his bike over here. I hope he was polite to everyone, but he loved it as usual. So thank you to the city for continuing to do that event. And then I just wanted to make note of the letter on our dais from the Land Preserve. I was really impressed with Dr. Scramstad at the previous meeting. And as I read this letter, I was delighted to learn that he has agreed to work with them in a they say a meaningful way. Well, I didn't. I mean, I got the impression that he came to kind of support that initial effort, but I didn't get the impression that there was any further commitment on his part. And so I just really feel like he has so much experience with properties just like this that I'm excited that he's willing to help them with that effort, and then vicariously us as well. And that's it.
Councilor Wheel.
Thank you. No report.
Councilor Safavi.
No report.
City Manager.
I'll start with any other staff reports.
Just wanted to mention again, we were also very pleased with the turnout we had for our master plan open house. Thought we got some really great feedback on that. The attendance exceeded my expectation, and so we were very thrilled with that. But in addition to that, the community survey is also available and asks a lot of the similar questions as was the open house. That is available on the project website, chvillagevision.com. So please go there and check that out and fill out the survey and invite a friend to do so as well. So thank you. It's on the homepage of our website as well. Thank you, Laura.
I can't see most of you, but thank you for the kind words about the car show. We had about 35 cars and we're getting great feedback. So shout out to Pamela Broyles. She's the one that really spearheads that event and makes it as special as it is. So big thanks to her. We are starting to plan the winter celebration. That one's a little bit more complicated in terms of our other special events, since that one is partially indoor, partially outdoor. So we are looking ahead and starting to plan that with an eye towards whatever health guidance will be in place at the time.
Well, can I make a quick comment on that? This is with the Santa and everything, right?
Yes.
Right. And I think everybody may have a different view. my recommendation or for you guys to consider is that, a lot of these kids are not vaccinated and they're going to be sitting on Santa's lap. And all we need is one kid to be positive. And I just think that, I'd rather be on the more cautious side and recommend that it's just another year. In a year from now, we're either all fully vaccinated, we've all got COVID and have some immunity. So I just want to, suggest that we may want to consider either having it outdoor if it's possible, without the Santa, but then in that case, who's going to show up? So we may want to postpone it just by a year. That's all.
Thank you. Those are some of the discussions we're having, so I appreciate the feedback.
I do have a report. Included in the packet for the next meeting will be an MOU with the state of Colorado for the national opioid settlement. So Cherry Hills Village will receive approximately $47,000 over an 18-year period. It's very restricted, again, on what those funds can be spent on, mostly prevention programs, treatment programs, expanding treatment facilities, things of that nature. So staff will most likely be recommending that we allocate our portion to Arapahoe County since they have those programs in place and we do not. So just as an update.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
And then finally for me, on Monday, the 11th, Angelo Alston will be sentenced for the incident on Sedgwick in which there was a home invasion robbery and then Corey Sack was shot. It's been a long time. I will be attending, and I believe there'll be several members of the police department going to that. So that's Monday the 11th at 2:30.
I have a few reports. Just a update for October 19th. That meeting is going to be officially canceled. I'll post that notice tomorrow since we don't have a quorum. So our next meeting will be November 2nd. In your packet is a list of the 2022 meeting dates, including a recommendation to have the retreat on February 1st. That's when we kind of had it previously during the day and then the regular council meeting at night. October 23rd, we have the flu shot clinic and the drug take back event, both that weekend day. And November 3rd, we have an art show reception. We're going to have a new art show out in the hallway here. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that.
Looking ahead, knowing that we're not going to have a meeting in 2 weeks, just wanted to highlight that there is an executive committee meeting for the I-25 Bellevue interchange process. And, I know that has been on, there's been a lot of offline discussions about what's going to happen with that next. I'm hopeful that we will hear about maybe some of the results of those offline discussions. Mr. Mayor, I know that you have attended those in the past. It is at 11:30, so you have a conflict, so I will carry the flag, because you said your meeting is at 11, right? The policy committee?
This coming Friday. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I will, it's all right.
That's fine. Yeah,
I'm not expecting that they're going to be putting us on the spot or anything. I think it's going to be more them reporting where their individual stances are, specifically Greenwood Village and Denver.
Well, I think Denver may give an update on where it is. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
It was looking at some options, so maybe they'll report back.
And then finally, I just want to wrap up my portion with just, everybody's hit on this, so I'm not bringing up anything new, but I think it bears repeating. Just kudos to staff for, I think this past 2 weeks is a good example of a lot of the good work that's been going on, ranging from the master plan to the car show to the budget. And, the budget sometimes, when we can give the raises that we want to give and when everybody gets this capital projects they want to do and we still have money for, putting in the reserve, that's a good year, but it's easier. And this year was not that easy year. And so I want to give kudos to Jessica for, somebody mentioned earlier, running all the different iterations. There was a lot of that this year. And so hats off. I personally think it really strikes a great balance between being responsible with the taxpayer dollars that we're given, while at the same time making sure that we are providing the services and doing a lot for our employees that provide those services that we can. So well done. Kudos to you. So kudos to all staff. Again, I think this has been a great 2 weeks. Nothing unusual about it necessarily. It just shows, I think, a lot of the good work that everybody's been doing. So thanks to staff.
Okay, city attorney. There is a report about David Broadwell's successor. He's being interviewed, so it's very likely to be announced.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Okay. And I'll see you, David, one more time at least at the CML City Attorney.
That's right.
Attorney section in Pueblo.
And I have a conflict. I'll be out of town, so I will
Okay.
not be able to attend that.
I can share my materials.
And they have also found a new communications person. That was announced as well. She's from, I can't remember. Anyway, sounds good. All right, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned without objection. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you third week in November. No, first week in November.